I have worked the first aid post at Caldwell Street Station for 6 years. In that time, I have treated sprained ankles from people who misjudged the gap between the train and the platform. I have given aspirin to men in suits who refused to admit they were having a bad heart day. I have held the hands of elderly passengers who sat down on a bench and simply could not remember where they were going or why. I have bandaged fingers and calmed children, and once, on a Thursday in October, talked a college student through a full panic attack while his backpack sat between us leaking a smoothie neither of us acknowledged. I know this station the way you know a house you have lived in for years. I know which fluorescent light above the southbound entrance buzzes at a slightly higher pitch than the others. I know that the coffee cart near the turnstiles runs out of oat milk by 8:15 every single morning without exception, and that the man who runs it, a heavyset guy everyone calls Pete, though his name tag says Petros, will tell you he is out with the same apologetic shrug every time, as though he has never once considered ordering more. I know the smell of the platform at 6:40 in the morning, which is different from the smell at noon, which is different again from the smell at 9 at night when the cleaning crew has just finished, and the whole station carries that specific cold chemical scent that I have never been able to decide if I find comforting or unsettling. The point is, I know ordinary. I have made a career out of knowing ordinary. That Tuesday in February was, by every measure I had developed over 6 years, completely ordinary. It was cold above ground, the kind of cold that makes Chicago feel personal, like the wind has decided it has something specific against you. And so, the platform was more crowded than usual by 7:20. People do not linger on the street when it is 11 degrees with a wind chill that takes it down to something the weather apps describe with the word dangerous in red text. They descend into the station, and they crowd the platform and they stand close together in a way that strangers in Chicago almost never do above ground, sharing warmth without acknowledging that they are sharing warmth, staring at their phones or the arrival board or the middle distance with the particular blank expression of people who are present in body, but have mentally already arrived wherever they are going. The school group came down at 7:34. I remember noting the time because I always note when school groups arrive, not because they cause trouble, but because they change the acoustic character of the platform immediately and completely. One moment it is the low, adult murmur of a working Tuesday morning. The next it is 32 12-year-olds in matching green jackets asking questions their teacher cannot answer fast enough, pointing at things, laughing at things that are not funny to anyone over the age of 14, existing at a volume and a frequency that cuts straight through everything else. Their teacher, a young woman with a red scarf and the slightly desperate energy of someone who had already counted heads 4 times and was about to count them again, was trying to keep them toward the middle of the platform, away from the yellow safety line, away from the edge. This is standard. This is what you do with a school group on a metro platform. I was standing at my post near the first aid box, drinking the coffee I had brought from home in a thermos because I had learned years ago not to depend on Pete, watching the platform with the relaxed attention that becomes automatic after enough years. Not looking for anything specific, just watching. That is when I saw her. She was standing near the northeast end of the platform. Not near the edge, she was a few feet back from the yellow line, which is where sensible people stand. But she was standing completely still in a way that nobody on a crowded morning platform stands completely still. Everyone else was shifting, checking phones, adjusting bags, doing the small, unconscious choreography of people waiting. She was not doing any of that. She was standing with her left arm raised slightly, wrist turned upward, looking at her watch. I registered her the way you register anything that doesn't quite fit the pattern, not with alarm, but with a small, involuntary attention. She was older, somewhere in her mid to late 60s, with short silver hair cut close and practical, The kind of haircut that says the person wearing it made a decision at some point to stop spending time on things that didn't matter. She was dressed in a long charcoal coat, good quality, and she was wearing, and this is the detail that stayed with me even before I understood why. She was wearing a watch that looked like it belonged in an engineering context rather than on a person's wrist. Large face, multiple subdials, the kind of instrument you would expect to see mounted on a wall in a facility somewhere, not worn as jewelry. She was looking at it the way you look at something that is telling you something you already knew, but needed confirmed. Her lips were moving. I picked up my kit and walked over. I introduced myself, told her I was the station paramedic, asked if she was feeling all right. She looked up from her watch and looked at me with an expression I have thought about many times since. It was not the expression of someone who was confused or frightened or unwell. It was patient. It was the expression of someone who has explained something many times and has made peace with the fact that they are about to explain it again, and that the explanation will not be fully believed. "I'm perfectly fine," she said. Her voice was calm and even. "Thank you for coming over." I asked if I could take her pulse. She moved her wrist, the one with the watch, slightly away from me. Not dramatically. Just a small, deliberate repositioning, the way you move something valuable out of reach without making a scene of it. "That won't be necessary," she said. I told her I had noticed she had been standing very still for several minutes. I told her that sometimes in the cold, circulation could. "I need you to do something for me," she said, and she said it in a tone that was so steady and so specific that I stopped talking mid-sentence. "I need you to keep your eyes on the northeast pillar, the one at the far end of the platform, structural column 4. Can you see it from here?" I looked. There was a thick concrete pillar at the far end of the platform, one of 6 that ran the length of the station supporting the roof structure. Column 4 was the one closest to the end wall, partially behind the school group, painted the same institutional gray as all the others. "Yes," I said. "Good," she said. "Keep watching it, not yet, but soon." I asked her what her name was. "Marin," she said. And then she looked back down at her watch. I stood there for a moment, genuinely uncertain. She did not appear confused. She did not appear to be in physical distress. She was not slurring her words or showing any of the signs I had been trained to recognize. She was just watching her watch and telling me to watch a pillar. I went back to my post and I radioed my supervisor. His name was Derek, and Derek had been supervising first aid operations at Caldwell Street for 11 years, which meant he had developed an even more refined sense of ordinary than I had, and an even lower tolerance for deviations from it that didn't involve someone actively bleeding. I told him there was a woman near the northeast end of the platform, older, appeared calm and coherent, had asked me to watch column 4, and told me something was happening soon. There was a pause. "Is she on the tracks?" Derek asked. I said no. "Is she threatening anyone?" "No." "Is she in medical distress?" "Not that I could determine." Another pause. "Keep an eye on her," he said. "If she goes near the edge, call it in." I said I would. I walked back to my post and looked at Marin, who had not moved. She was still standing in the same position, wrist raised, watching the watch. I was far enough away now that I couldn't read the display, but I could see that it had a digital readout of some kind, small and green-lit, nestled among the analog subdials like something that had been added to the watch later, retrofitted into the face for a specific purpose. A transit officer named Greg, younger than me, new to the station that winter, had noticed her by then. I watched him make the same walk I had made, introduce himself the same way, get the same calm, patient response. He came back past my post a minute later with the same expression I imagined I was wearing. "She told me to watch column 4, he said. "She told me the same thing," I said. We both looked at column 4. It looked like a pillar. "She seems fine," Greg said. "She does," I said. We stood there for a moment, sharing the specific discomfort of two people who have been told something is wrong and cannot find any evidence that something is wrong, and are therefore left with the uncomfortable middle ground of not knowing what to do. The morning rush was at full density now. The platform was as crowded as it gets, not dangerously crowded, but full. The school group had spread slightly despite their teachers' efforts. A train had come and gone on the southbound side and deposited another wave of commuters. The arrival board showed the next northbound train in 4 minutes. I looked back at Marin. She had lowered her wrist. She was looking at column 4. And then she looked at me across the length of the platform, and even at that distance I could see the shift in her expression. The patience was still there, but something else had arrived alongside it. Not panic, nothing as loud as panic. More like readiness. She began to move, she did not run. That is the thing I want to be precise about, because when I have told this story since, and I have told it more times than I expected to in the months that followed, people always imagine that she ran. They picture an old woman sprinting through a crowd, arms waving, shouting a warning. That is how people expect danger to announce itself. Loud. Obvious, unmistakable. Marin did not do any of that. She walked, but she walked with a kind of controlled purposefulness that, once you saw it, you could not look away from. She was moving toward the northeast end of the platform, toward column 4, and as she moved, she was doing something with her hands. Small gestures, a slight extension of her arm to her right, which caused the man standing there, a young guy in a parka, headphones on, completely absorbed in his phone, to step reflexively to the left without even looking up. A turn of her body that somehow redirected two women with roller luggage away from the far end and toward the center of the platform. A gentle touch on the shoulder of a woman standing at the edge that was so natural and so brief that the woman simply shifted inward, the way you shift when someone nudges you in a crowd, without registering it as anything other than the ordinary physics of being in a crowded space. She was moving people, without telling them she was moving them, without alarming a single person. I started walking. I don't remember making the decision to start walking. I was just suddenly moving, following her down the platform, and as I moved I began doing what she was doing, not because I understood it, but because watching her do it made it seem like the obvious thing to do. I touched an arm here, said "excuse me" there, created small redirections that accumulated into a slow, invisible push of bodies away from the northeast end. Greg fell in beside me after about 30 seconds. "What are we doing?" he said quietly. "I don't know exactly," I said. "Okay," he said, and he started doing it too. The school group was the challenge. 32 12-year-olds do not redirect easily or invisibly. Marin reached the teacher first, the woman with the red scarf, and said something to her in a voice too low for me to hear. The teacher looked at her, then looked at the pillar, then looked back at Marin. And something in what she saw in Marin's face made her turn to her students and begin moving them toward the center stairs in the brisk, no-argument tone that teachers develop for situations where there is no time for questions. I was close enough to column 4 now that I could see it properly. And then I heard it. It was not a loud sound. I want to be clear about that too, because the mind tends to retrofit drama onto moments like this, tends to insert sounds that were bigger than they actually were. It was not a crack or a boom or any of the sounds that appear in film versions of structural failures. It was a low, resonant groan. The kind of sound that concrete makes when something it has been holding for a long time shifts by a fraction of a degree. The kind of sound that most people on a busy platform, with train noise and conversation and the school group moving toward the stairs, would not have heard at all. I heard it because I was close, and because by then I was listening. I looked down. Along the base of the northeast section of the platform, at the join between the platform edge and the main floor, there was a crack I had never seen before. Thin, maybe 3 feet long. The kind of crack that could be old, that could have been there for years, that the eye skips over when it is looking at everything else. Except that it was not old. The edge of it was pale. The concrete where it had opened was the bright, raw gray of a fresh break. I looked at Marin. She was looking at her watch. "How long?" I said. "4 minutes," she said, "maybe less." I got on my radio. I told Derek there was a fresh structural crack at the base of the northeast platform section near column 4. I told him the crack was new. I told him I needed an official evacuation call immediately. Derek said he would contact the structural team and have someone come down to assess. I said we did not have time for an assessment. He said procedure required an assessment before an evacuation could be authorized. I said some words to Derek that I will not reproduce here, but that accurately conveyed my feelings about procedure in that specific moment. He said he understood my concern and would escalate. I looked at Marin. I looked at the platform. The crowd had thinned at the northeast end through our small, invisible redirections, but the center and south sections were still dense. The arrival board now showed the northbound train in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which meant that in approximately 90 seconds the platform would get significantly more crowded, not less, as people positioned themselves for boarding. "Can you call the evacuation?" I said to Greg. "I don't have authorization," he said. "Neither do I said. We looked at each other. Marin had already turned away from us. She was walking, still at that same controlled pace, toward the far wall. There was a gray metal panel set into the wall near the end of the platform, the kind of panel you see in old transit infrastructure and never really look at, bolted shut, painted over, probably original to the station's construction decades ago. She reached it, examined it for a moment, and then did something I still cannot fully explain. She pressed 2 points on the panel simultaneously. Not the handle, not any obvious mechanism, but 2 specific points on the surface, and the panel swung outward on hinges that clearly had not moved in a very long time. Inside was a bank of switches and a small speaker unit, and a panel of controls that looked like they were from a completely different era than the rest of the station's technology. I said, "How do you know about that?" She said, "I installed it." She reached in and threw a specific sequence of 3 switches. The speaker crackled, and then a tone came out of it. Not the modern evacuation alarm I had heard tested on quarterly drills, which is a standard electronic warble that everyone in the city recognizes as a drill tone. This was something older, a lower, more insistent sound, 2-note and repeating, with an authority in it that the modern alarm somehow lacks. The platform responded immediately. Not in panic, not in a stampede. That is the thing about a tone that sounds genuinely authoritative rather than procedural. It does not frighten people into chaos. It moves them. There is a difference. People began walking toward the exits with the purposeful, instinctive efficiency of people who have heard something their body understands even if their mind is still catching up. The school group was already at the stairs. The teacher with the red scarf was counting heads. I could see her lips moving, the same count she had been running all morning, but faster now. The commuters flowed toward both exits without being told which way to go. Pete from the coffee cart came out from behind his counter and began directing people with the calm efficiency of someone who had, apparently, been waiting his whole career for a reason to do exactly this. Greg stationed himself at the north stairs. I moved people from the platform edge. Marin stood at the intercom panel and watched. I was the last person on the platform. I know this because I turned to check and the platform behind me was empty, all the way to the south stairs. For the first time I had ever seen it empty at 7:49 on a Tuesday morning. The arrival board showed the northbound train in 40 seconds. I looked at the crack near column 4. It was longer than it had been 4 minutes ago. I walked up the stairs. I was on the street, cold air, 11 degrees, wind off the lake when I heard it. Not felt it, heard it. A deep, concussive sound from below, the kind of sound that travels up through the soles of your feet from the ground itself, that you register in your chest before your ears have fully processed it. Around me, the crowd that had just come up from the platform stopped moving, froze for about 2 seconds in the specific suspended stillness of people whose bodies have registered something important before their minds have caught up. Then the ground settled, and people looked at each other, and the 2 seconds passed, and some people pulled out phones and some people moved further back from the entrance.